We are officially now recording our Innerspace journeys for this Sunday. I'm so happy to see you all. Today, we're going to talk about collapsing polarity. As I had shared a couple of minutes ago, for those of you who just logged on, if you would like to grab a beverage, if you want to light a candle, smudge your space, bring in sacred objects, whatever helps you feel more connected to your divinity, that's something that you can certainly do now. It may be useful for you to have a beverage. I like to have my water close because once we get going and the energies come in, things do tend to kind of heat up, literally and metaphorically. So, just making sure you have everything you need so you can be fully comfortable. And then also you may want pen and paper, because something may come through for you, a message, an insight, an aha moment, that you want to jot down and make a note of. Obviously, you're going to have the replay to refer to since I do post these on my YouTube channel. But, if you want to, prepare yourself, make sure that you are ready to go for whatever arrives for you today, then you'll be good to go. So what we're going to do today, and as we always do, we're just going to kind of ease into it. We are going to begin with whatever channeled information wants to come through, wherever spirit wants to start. I do have my notes here that I'll be referring back to. So you may see me looking over to the side here. I'm just looking at my notes. So we'll have an opening message, have an opening moment of connection. Then we'll have some time for some discussion or questions or anything that people want to offer, anything perhaps that comes up that is activated or perhaps even triggered by today's subject. We will have some time to open that up if you want to. And then we'll wrap it up with some guided energy work, the inner exploration, energy work / guided meditation. It's kind of just that beautiful mixture that I have been, sort of creating over the past decade or so, where it's about your connection with yourself. And I will offer prompts, I will offer guidance depending on whatever I'm receiving, and then your experience will be entirely your own. You can make it what you will. I think that's all of my spiel. Pretty sure that's all of it. So today we're going to talk. Oh, and another thing. Discussion is not required. If you are a quiet person, if you're a private person, if you like to keep to yourself and you are just happy observing, then that's all you have to do. And discussion is not, I don't need you to have answers. I don't need you to have it figured out. Like you can even say, like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like that's a relevant topic for discussion. So when we open it up for the discussion and question and answer, please don't feel like perhaps like, oh, is this like good enough? Should I offer this? Whatever. Just whatever feels like it wants to come forward, whatever feels like it wants to be expressed, feel free to share that. And if that's nothing, that's perfectly fine too. I just want you to know that this is a safe place. I'm not interested in pushing you beyond your comfort zone here, not interested in pushing you beyond your boundaries here. Now, having said that, I will say, if you find yourself brushing up against your comfort zone today, if you find yourself brushing up against the edges of what you understand or what you know, stay there. Stay there, because that's the only way that growth and evolution occurs, is if we move beyond. And it doesn't have to be a leap off the cliff. That's my style. It's not everybody's style. It can be tiny, teeny little baby steps as you dip one little toe at a time into the pool and proceed into the deeper end at your own level of comfort. But don't let your attachment to being comfortable make you miss an opportunity to grow and to move beyond. I can tell you, comfort is highly overrated. And I say that as I'm sitting in my favorite hoodie in this climate-controlled home on this really soft chair with all of my blankets. Hey, take it when you can. But if comfort is a prerequisite for the entirety of your human experience, good luck. Good luck. That's what I will say to you. And if you've managed to crack the code on how to always be comfortable, hey, you should be leading this group. So really what I hope is that these gatherings at least spark something within you that wants to know, that wants to explore, that wants to experience, that wants more information or a deeper understanding. And more than anything, this is simply about us coming together in community. Simply about us knowing that every week we have this space to connect and to be with one another in whatever way feels comfortable. So today, again, we're going to talk about polarity consciousness. We're going to talk about the ideas of polarity and duality. But what I'd like to do is, and we can open this up to the group. Sorry, I need to get reorganized here. I've got a little multimedia presentation that I'm going to do, and that requires more room on my desk. So tell me, and you can do this in the chat if you would like to. Here is the chat. Most of you are familiar with that by now. Ooh, Nina, I love that. Nina's having her coffee this morning. I already had mine and I'm on to my water. But what I wanted, so in the chat is where you can share ideas, share support, share thoughts, share questions. So if something's coming in and you just want to get it out and get it on paper, so to speak, put it in the chat. If you would like to offer something when we get into group discussion and question and answer, you can put it in the chat, or you can simply raise your hand and then I'll unmute you and we can have a dialogue. But what I would like to know from you, and you can either put this in the chat or just unmute yourself and blurt it out, when we're talking about polarity and the idea of polarity consciousness, what does that mean for you? What comes up for you, or what moves through your awareness when we're talking about the idea of polarity? We often like to also call it duality consciousness, but I think there's a difference between the two. There's a distinction, and I'm going to explain that in a moment. But what I would like to know from you is when we're talking about the idea of polarity, what does that mean for you? Another way to ask that question is, what was it that prompted you to come today? I love if you're saying, well, I just wanted to hang out with you, Amar. That's awesome. I love that. But specifically to today's topic about polarity, what comes up for you? What is activated within you when we're talking about that? Okay, love that, Elisa. She's saying us against them, black and white, like black versus white. Absolutely. Anybody else? And again, you can put it in the chat or you can shadow side. Love that, Nicole. Yeah. Matthew says opposition and balance. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anything else? Division versus unity? Yeah, totally, Jillian. You know, these ideas of one thing or another, right? And in our current climate, especially here in the US, especially in an election year, good God, can I just go to a different planet for the entire month of like October and November? Like, can I just be done? Angie, a way to hide yourself and not have to think. Ding, 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 ding. I love that, Anne. A way to hide yourself and not have to think. If there are only two sides, and one of them is right, one of them is wrong, one of them is good, one of them is bad, one's going to heaven, one's going to hell, or whatever the punchline is, all I have to do is align myself with one group and say, well, this is what I am. It doesn't require me to think. It doesn't require me to be sovereign. It doesn't require me to be independent. It does not require critical thinking. I just get to be a part of a mass of individuals, a mass of consciousness, and I can put it on my name tag and say, this is who I am, this is what I believe, this is what I think. I don't have to challenge it, I don't have to be smart about it, and I don't have to be critical. And when I say critical, I don't mean necessarily as in criticism as like your shoes are ugly and your hair looks bad. I mean critical thinking as in objectively, is this true? Objectively, does this make sense? So these ideas of polarity, this idea of division and, being at odds with one another, we talk a lot about in our spiritual circles, this idea of the center. And we even talked about it last week to the degree that it was the topic of our entire gathering, was this idea of coming back to the center. And if you haven't watched that one, the replay is on YouTube, my YouTube channel, Amar Energy. I invite you to watch that because it was a beautiful discussion and some really, really potent energy work that we engaged in. But essentially, what we talked about last week, in my perspective of this idea of the center or the middle, the center is home. The center is where our point of connection is. It's where our truth with a capital T resides and our access to that truth. But there's an interesting thing that we need to first kind of open up as we're talking about the center. There we go. Come on. There we go. So there it is. So if we're looking, can everyone see the screen that's in front of me? Hi, everyone. Okay, got it. So if we're thinking of the center and we see ourselves on this field, this blank expanse. How do I find the center? And let's imagine that there is no screen here. Let's just imagine that this is a white space and it goes on endlessly. We could say it's also a black space, but for the sake of today, I'm using a white screen, so we're going to call it a white space. But in this white void, where is the center? And you can unmute yourself and just blurt an answer out if you like. You can also chat. I can't really see the chat while I am engaged. Oh, yes, I can. I'm a liar. Middle. Yeah, Nicole's saying it's the middle. The center is the middle. But in an expansive white field, where's the middle? This is a bit of a trick question. We are going to have some philosophical workout today.
The center moves.
Yeah, so Jillian says the center is where you stand. I think it was Melissa who said the center moves. Both of those are true. So the first way to look at it is your inner Angie, exactly, your own consciousness is the center. So we talked about this last week, I am. And we talked about finding ourselves in the center, the eye of the storm, I am. So I am is our innate consciousness, right? The only claim the divine ever makes is I am. Everything else after that is a choice. Everything else after that is a projection or an application of belief. So I am. That is our innate state. That is our innate place. That is neutrality. That is unconditional love, right? Unconditional love is a neutral state. It is just being. I am. So there's the I am consciousness. And I have an understanding of that as myself, as the divine, as this being called Amar that chose the experience to live through me physically. So I am, but we have this interesting thing that happens when we come into this physical realm called Earth. Elisa says the center is wherever you want it to be. There's this interesting thing that happens when we come into this earthly realm, and that is the amnesia. That is the forgetting of who and what we are. That is kind of the whole point, or at least one of the main points of a human experience, is to come from that place of being connected to all that is and understanding yourself as all that is, and then having an experience of individuation and coming into an experience that tells you you're separate, tells you you're alone, tells you you're the only one of a kind, whatever. And then you have this experience of forgetting. Who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose? What's my point? Why does it hurt? Why am I afraid? Why am, whatever. So we come in with this I am consciousness, and then over time, what happens? We begin to erode that because they say, oh, no, you're not that. No, that's not who you are. This is who you are. No, because of your gender, because of your skin color, because of your racial identity, your ethnic identity, your gender identity, your zip code, your bank balance, whatever, you are none of that. No, we're going to divide you. We're going to cut you up. So we learn in this reality, and that's the whole point. We come here for the experience of separation consciousness. We come here to forget, so we have the adventure of remembering. Because if you are a being who's up there in the pool with everything else, and all I have to do is snap my fingers or even think about something, and there it is, and there I become, that would get boring after a while. So what would be exciting? What would be a challenge? Ooh, an obstacle course of forgetting. Ooh, an obstacle course of believing that I'm anything but what I really am. So the answer from the human perspective of how do I find the center? Well, I've got to go. Please do your thing. Yeah. I've got to go to the extremes. I got to go all the way to that end of the field. And I got to go all the way to that end of the field. I got to go to the deepest depths. I got to go to the highest highs. And there is the center. Am I ever going to experience that if I sit in a place of moral superiority and say, well, all those people are wrong? How do you know? Wrong compared to what? Wrong compared to who? Without knowing your shadow and your light equally, without traveling to the highest level of access that you can connect within your consciousness into the deepest, darkest parts of your shadow and your pain and your wounding, you will never know where the center is. There's another thing that I want to talk about. as we talk about this idea of the middle. And this was something that happened a couple of years ago when I was working with Osiris, and he was talking about this idea of the child and using the pyramid or the equilateral triangle as a model. Are you going to do it for me, Other Bear? So pretend that this is a pyramid. These are representative and symbolic. Okay, so we talk about the left side of the body. The left-hand side is the feminine side, right? The left side is my feminine receptive. So there's my feminine self on the left. The right side of the body, the right-hand side is the masculine self, my assertive, choosing, sending energy. There's my masculine self. So when I go all the way to the extremes of my feminine energy and all the way to the extremes of my masculine energy, suddenly, guess what? I know where the balance point is. That's the fulcrum. That's in the center. And look what's right in the center of the equilateral triangle, the peak, the pinnacle. This is the Trinity. This is where the child descends. The child, the higher self, the true self, the soul, the spirit, that indelible, infinite, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it right now, but that eternal part of us, that is the child. And the child, that higher self energy, can only begin to descend into form once my feminine and masculine are in balance. So that's why we live lifetime after lifetime. So I can have all those lives of exploring my femininity and then have all those lifetimes of exploring my masculinity. And it doesn't matter what my gender is. And then I come from my final lifetime of completion. And guess what? I find the center point. Guess what? I am both. I've been the feminine. I've been the masculine. I've been the beginning. I've been the end. I've been the victim. I've been the perpetrator. I am all of that. There's one more thing I want to show you. This is the Vesica Piscis, or Vesica Pisces would be the plural. We talk a lot about this shape for a lot of reasons, but in sacred geometry, this is the first division. This is when we go from the sphere, right, which is that beginning, to I want to know myself. And how do I know myself? Well, I have to divide. The only reason that we have these experiences of individuation is so spirit can know itself. The only way the ocean knows itself is through the experience of the wave. So we have this division where we divide, and guess what? Here's my feminine self. Here's my masculine self. And when they are perfectly in balance, we have this opening. In my opinion, this is where life begins. This is where the cell enters the body, or the soul enters the body through that first cellular division. Again, when the feminine and the masculine, when my dual nature is in perfect balance, that creates an opening for the child to descend. I just want to put those ideas into your mind as we proceed, because for a lot of us, I understand this is a visual experience, but these ideas of balance, the Vesica Piscis, the Venn diagram, the pyramid, the sacred geometry, this is how our soul speaks. This is language that our soul understands. So a visual representation is often really, really important and necessary, and a part of that triggering experience. So here's what I see. Polarity says you have to choose. Polarity says you are good, you are bad, you are right, you are wrong, you are conservative, you are liberal, you are whatever, you are whatever. And we have been programmed to believe that we have to choose a side. We have been programmed to believe that there's a right way and a wrong way. My question has always been, since I was a kid, well, who gets to decide? This side is screaming, we're God-fearing people who are doing what the Lord says, and so this is why we're doing it. This side says we are not God-fearing and we believe in science, and that's what justifies. We use the sense of our rightness to justify all sorts of atrocities. That's like on a global, horrible, awful, like ethnic cleansing scale. But we also, in our own life and in our personal day-to-day, those of us who would never say, yeah, I'm a sociopath, yeah, I'm not going to go out and murder, but still, we use our rightness and our belief that we are right to justify all sorts of things that aren't true or authentic or honest or kind. So this idea that we have to choose a side is false. This idea that there's a right way and a wrong way is false, because Everybody is the hero of their own story. Everybody is doing, from their perspective, the best thing that they feel they have access to in that moment. And I promise you, I have yet to meet a human who does not have multitudes of lifetimes being the good guy and the bad guy. So the truth is, you are all of it. The truth is, this idea of moral superiority is completely made up. It does not exist. There's what is true for you, there is choice, and there is outcome. Certainly, there are universal laws, but within a free will experience like the one we have on Earth, we even get to try to break those laws. So polarity is separation. Duality says, I am this and that. And what Anne said was really, really powerful, because in a polarity consciousness, I say, nope, I'm part of this group. We are the right group. We are the God-chosen group. We are the correct group, or whatever my mission statement for the group I belong to is. And it allows me to completely shut off my brain. It allows me to completely shut off my feeling centers. And I just go into a rote, regurgitated, scripted idea, scripted version of who I am and what I believe, and I never challenge it. There's another way to look at this. This is kind of what happens to us as kids. We're born into a family system, and everything that we are born into is what we are told is right. At 5 years old, are you going to have the awareness to go, is that true though, Mom? Maybe. I did. I have this sense of like, but is that really real? Is that true? And guess what? It was just slowly programmed out of me. So polarity says I am this or that. Duality says I am this, I am that. Polarity is separation. Duality is union. There's actually, in my book, Notes from the Higher Self, available on Amazon, chapter 68 is actually relevant to this. I'm going to read it to you. It's a nice short one. The message, number 68, is when you curse it, you claim it. When you love it, you set it free. Your ego will do its best to convince you that trying to destroy, deny, or punish the things you don't like is the way to go. Sure, it might feel good in the moment to express yourself that way, but ultimately you only end up rolling around in the muck with it. Hate and fear perpetuate more hate and fear. It's an endless loop. When you turn to face whatever it is with love and compassion, you actually elevate the object of your focus. You elevate it to a level where it can transform. Love doesn't mean you condone it. Love means you accept that everyone is always coming from the highest level of awareness that they have access to in that moment. You can't create above your lowest belief. When you love it instead of cursing it, you actually create a space for it to be transformed. Don't join it in the darkness, invite it to the light. When we curse something, we immediately attach ourselves to it. Resistance pushes away, but resistance is not detachment. Anybody who's ever done any strength training understands this, that resistance does one thing. It makes things bigger. It makes them stronger. You want bigger pecs, you want a bigger chest, then you got to lift more weight. You need a heavier resistance. So when I stand myself on this soapbox of moral superiority and I'm shaking my finger at that thing, and it could be a group of people, a religion, I mean, pick your poison, whatever label it is. When I'm pointing my finger at that thing and condemning it and wanting to eradicate it from existence, I actually attach myself to it and make myself a part of it. So I create an opposing force. But what happens when I open myself? What happens when I meet an opposing force with openness? Now I subsume it. Now I pull it into me. When something is within my field, I always have dominion over it. That's a thought, that's a belief, that's a pattern, that's a frequency. When someone comes into my field, when something comes into my field or arises from within my field, I have dominion over it. But the second that I believe that it is more powerful, that it is truer, that it is better, that it is right, and I am wrong, now suddenly I exist within it. Do you understand the distinction? If in my mind I believe something is more powerful than I am, I grant it dominion over me, and I live within its construct, within its geometry. But the moment that I remember who I am and what I am, the moment that I recall, oh, I'm just spirit in a body. I am all that is having a finite expression called Amar. Right. Okay. So I'm everything. I've been it all. I've done it all. Now it lives within me. Now I have immediately changed the geometric nature of my experience, and it all comes down to belief. So when I believe that I am good and you are bad, I was talking with my mom about this recently last summer when I was home, and she's very, very vocal about her political beliefs. And she was talking to me about them in the car one day about those people. And I said, you do realize that's exactly what they're saying about you, don't you? If you take out conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, or whatever, it's like Mad Libs. The script is exactly the fucking same. Both sides are condemning the other. How can they both be wrong? If they're both wrong, then they're both right. And if they're both right and both wrong, then neither of them are right or wrong. They both simply are. That is duality. I'm all of it. You're not going to pigeonhole me into a side. Because the minute that my identity and my belief system attach to a specific side of a polar opposite, then I'm only on one side of the seesaw. And I can only go up or down according to what the other end does. When I am in my duality nature, I'm at the fulcrum, baby. I'm always in the middle. I'm always balanced. I'm always in that central channel. So, what is the antidote to this polarity? The first thing that I do is find the observer's perch. I simply watch. I'm just going to watch and see what happens. I'm just going to watch this program that's telling me to go do this thing. I'm just going to watch this belief that's telling me because I'm not that I'm worse than or better than. And then once I find that observer's perch, I'm going to do an unflinching inventory of my belief system. Am I right? How do I know? It's not about right or wrong, it's about truth. And when something is true, questioning it only reveals how true it actually is. And I say this all the time. If someone's speaking to you what they say is truth, and then you question it and they say, oh, you're not allowed to question it, I am running so fast the other way, your head's going to spin. This is also how we collapse the loop of karma. Karma is simply a mechanism through which to learn. I also don't believe that karma is a universal law. I don't have evidence of this. I just have my own internal knowing. I think karma is a construct of the earthly experience. I think karma is the thing that's sort of like the safeguard to say, nope, you haven't found the middle yet. You need a few more lives to help you balance out your understanding from the soul's perspective, right? So the karma loop, the only way I'm ever going to escape that loop is by finding the center. Someone said the other day that really mastery is simply non-reactivity. Mastery is I can sit here in the middle of the burning fire and eat my lunch and be like, yeah, I'm good. Now, obviously, if you're in the middle of a forest fire, you're going to do more than sit and eat your lunch. But I'm speaking metaphorically. When your life is on fire, or when you are triggered to fire, and you're suddenly just a column of flaming rage, mastery is going, yeah, okay, there's that anger program. Woo, look at that. That's really turned up today. What am I going to do about it? I'm going to sit here. I'm going to watch it. To me, that's mastery. And we see this polarity all of the time, right? Science versus religion. Y'all are talking about the same thing, just from two opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Emotion versus logic. Well, you can't have one without the other. You can lean into one, you can exclude the other, but it doesn't mean you're eradicating it, right? Good versus evil. That's one of our favorite ones. I truly believe that evil and the concepts of sin are simply how far away from myself and my truth can I be? To me, that's what evil is. That I am so divorced from my true divinity, that I am so far away from it, that I don't even have a frame of reference for what that is. So in order to find that center, in order to collapse polarity in our own lives, you've got to include it in your field. And what I mean by that is the only way you're ever going to liberate yourself from polarity consciousness is by examining your belief system that tells you that that is wrong and I am right. I was recently watching a little clip from Bashar on YouTube, and someone was talking about the idea of, and it was actually really timely because it was kind of focused around this very idea. And she was saying, you know, I went vegan 10 years ago. And initially I felt really, really great because for me, it was a choice of like, I didn't want to hurt the animals. For her, it was an emotional choice. And she said, and I was great for the first couple of years. She said, but a decade later, and my adrenals are, you know, shot. I'm having all these physical problems. And really what my doctor said was, you just need a lot more protein. She said, so I started eating meat again. And she said, and I feel physically, I feel fantastic. My body is in amazing shape, but psychologically, I feel horrible. Emotionally, I feel so guilty. And basically his response was, there is no spiritual diet. There is your experience as a human and everything that that entails. And your experience with consuming animal products is your experience, but that doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. So he started to tell her what makes you sick is your belief about it, because you have created a reality where the alternative is not an option, where the alternative, your beliefs tell you it's so horrible, it's so non-spiritual, it's so out of alignment that you will let yourself be physically debilitated before you will consume or even consider consuming that product. He said, it's really about understanding that while it may not be a choice for you, it does not mean that it is not a choice, period. So until we can mentally find a place where we can just even consider that there is value in the opposing perspective, we will find ourselves trapped in polarity. Until we're able to say, I don't understand why they do that, but it's not my place to judge. My place is to focus on what's right for me. My place is to focus on what feels true for me. My place is to focus on what I am inspired to do. Not sit here and point my finger at all the people who are doing it wrong. There's another piece to consider here. If we believe that everything is a choice, and if we believe that consciousness simply is, then the animals made a choice too. So what about the soul that is the animal's sovereign choice to be consumed in this lifetime? So this idea that somehow over there is this wrong thing that I have to do everything to avoid, I am instantly a prisoner of that. Even though I am not in that experience, I am just as much a part of that as if I might as well be in that experience. Because until I can honestly and authentically say, I don't understand it, but I must accept that there is value there. That's why it's happening. There's another key. Relieve yourself of right or wrong, good or bad. Just know that there's value. I don't know why I'm here. Obviously, I'm here because on some point, on some level, I chose it. But beyond that, I don't really know. All I know is that there's a reason that I'm here, and there's a reason that I'm here, and that reason is valuable. And I don't have to know what it is, but what I can say is, Spirit, what is here for me? Help me to see so clearly and succinctly and directly the point and the purpose of this so that I can really truly see and move beyond. There's another piece here. Here's the question. What part of me is served by this? Whatever you find yourself in, wherever you find yourself, whatever circumstances you find yourself in, even if it's just you sitting in judgment, and even as I've been sharing with you this morning, if you're finding yourself realizing like, oh yeah, I'm holding some judgments about some people. All right, there's a whole group of individuals that I have decided are degenerates, lowlifes, idiots, stupid, fuckers, assholes, whatever. There's a part of you that thrives in that separation. There's a part of you that loves to be hateful. There is a part of you that sucks up chaos like fucking honey. There's a part of you that loves being in pain. And if we're not willing to explore those parts, doesn't mean you give them keys to the castle. Doesn't mean you let them be in charge of deciding things, right? Am I going to let the part of me that loves emotionally unavailable men be the one that chooses who we date? Hell no. But it doesn't mean I don't acknowledge that he exists. It doesn't mean I have not sat with him and said, baby, what is it about emotionally unavailable men that are so attractive to you? And he said something to the extent of, well, it's safe. If there's no emotional connection available, then there's no risk involved. And the worst that's going to happen is you might get your heart broken by someone who couldn't love you and didn't love you to begin with. But that's a whole lot better than getting 25 years into a relationship and then finding yourself completely ghosted or abandoned. So that was his answer. What I'm saying here is until we are willing to look at the parts of us that are attracted to the very thing that we seem to condemn, we will never liberate ourselves from it. And you don't have to. If you want to just give it all to spirit, say, well, I'm just going to live my life and I'll just come back around. I can do another human lifetime. Sure, why not? Knock yourself out. Not me. No, this is my last human experience. Thank you very much. But if you decide that you want another one, go for it, because there is no right or wrong. Spirit is not condemning or rewarding you. Spirit is simply responding to you. So, if you don't like what you see in the mirror, you don't change it by screaming at the mirror. If you don't like what's happening out there, you don't change it by condemning them more. Do you? Look, if that worked, we would not be where we are. If just flipping the bird to the thing that you don't like or don't want to deal with or don't want to understand, if that's what worked, we would not be here. We're seeing this on the global stage. Humanity has a deeply, deeply unacknowledged wound of separation. That's how we can justify all of these atrocities, because oh, look, see, we're civilized. Oh, those poor people, but we just have to bomb them out of existence because we're better. Not according to the people who you're bombing, you're not better. And until we are willing to sit down together and say, yep, I played a part in that. It's just going to continue. And how do we do that? I'm not on the UN Council. I'm not politically connected. I'm not going to be able to call a summit between world governments and leaders. But what can I do? Collapse polarity within myself. Now there's 1/8 billionth less polarity in the collective well. And if all of us do it, and there's how many of us on here? I don't know, 20 something. So if we all do it, then there's 28 billionths, and I'm using 8 billion because there's supposedly 8 billion humans on the planet right now. So if all 20 of us did that, then there's 28 billionths less polarity in the collective well. That's how it happens. It doesn't happen because I sit and I wait. It doesn't happen because I hope to be rescued by the same government that got me into this place. Good luck with that. Really? You think that the person who put you in prison is going to give you the key to the cell? Great. I have a bridge in Brooklyn I'd love to sell you. Cheap. So we have to be willing to sit with our own ignorance and foolishness. We have to be willing to say, honey, that's a nice idea, but it does not play out. It does not hold water. If you take that idea and play it out to the end, that formula does not balance. So until I say, yep, I have been the victim and I have been the perpetrator. I have been the tyrant and I have been the slave. Until I can sit in the face of my own darkness. Until I can sit and have tea with Mother Mary and Kali at the same time, at the same table. Hey, what's up? Wow, look at all that chaos you've been erupting all over the planet. That's amazing. Wow, look at all that healing and benevolent compassion you've been spreading all over the place. That's amazing. Okay, what are you going to have for lunch? Seriously, it sounds silly, but when you are at the degree of being able to sit with your own programming, your shadow, your darkness, to that point of going, yeah, I see you, then you're on the right track. But if you're tiptoeing around the perimeters of your life, hoping not to wake the sleeping tiger in the center of the room, I don't know about you, but that is not freedom for me. Liberation is being able to walk into any part of my life, any room in my inner landscape, and be entirely at home. So when you curse it, you claim it. When you love it, you set it free. When you refuse to condemn it, and you just are able to watch it from that point of neutrality, from that center place, then you create a space where it can actually transform. But when you lock into it as the problem, see, you're like tethered at the umbilical cord. And where you go, you do the opposite, and you do the opposite, then I'm bound by you and I can never escape you. But only when I stop and go, wait a minute, come here. I want to know you. I want to love you. I want to have compassion for you. I want to understand you. I want to accept that you just exist. That is liberation. It's like the buffet analogy. If you walk into Vegas and you go to one of those buffets where it's like every ridiculous kind of food under the sun, no doubt you are going to find at least 30% of that buffet that you wouldn't eat, that you can't eat, that you're allergic to, that you think is gross, that you find objectionable for some reason. Okay, I acknowledge it exists. Yep, look at all that food that I am not interested in. But are you going to spend the first 20 minutes of your time at the buffet going to every single dish that you hate and talking about how much you hate it? Or are you just going to go to the things you love? I can acknowledge the things that I don't prefer without letting them control me. Yep, there it is. I'm going to keep on going to the things I do love. So before we gear shift into our inner space, is there anything that anyone would like to offer or ask, or is anyone feeling triggered? I'm not laughing at the fact you're triggered. I'm just laughing at the fact that, I like activated these days. To me, triggered is victim mentality. Triggered is powerlessness. Triggered is, oh, I can't help it. This thing just happened to me. No, I was activated. Something activated me, and that's a choice. That's a decision. I think so too, Nina. So, really, I think, and as we move into the energy work, I think we'll expand around some of these ideas a little bit further. But really, what I hope, everything that I do, I hope is just that immaculate, pristine mirror. I've been saying this since the beginning. My job is to hold up the mirror so that you can see the perfected reflection of yourself. Whatever it is that's on the mirror that obscures that vision, that's the mud on the mirror. The mud on the mirror is your job to clean up. My job is to hold it while you clean it. And I can give you cleaning tips. I can give you my recipes for organic chemical-free cleaners. I can give you techniques and suggestions and how it works for other people, but I can't clean your mirror. I can only point you to the places where perhaps it's a little bit dirty. So my hope is that these gatherings reflect something to you that has given you an opportunity to find a little bit more of that perfection, that divinity within yourself, and to find it from a place of love. This is the other thing. Truth is its own dagger. We don't need to wield it as a weapon. We simply have to present it. So when you find what is true for you, be tender and delicate and kind with yourself with that truth. My medicine is kind of confronting and activating by nature. I can't help it. When I hear someone saying something that isn't true, it's like it lights a fire within me for them to see that. And you're right, Jillian, choice of language and energy of words is so important to pay attention to. These are those little fine-tuning things. And I released a teaser about this yesterday, the League of Self or the Self Liberators League. That's something that's starting in March. And this whole thing is going to be me talking about these things and sharing all of my tricks and my methods and my mechanisms. And I'm going to walk with you and, show you how to use them and teach you how to use them and watch them while you use them. Because that's why we came. We came to liberate ourselves. And I will never stop talking about the power of an example. And that when you witness someone living as one who has liberated themselves, it automatically begins to activate that within your energy field. It gives you permission. So if you want to heal the world, live as one who is healed. If you want to liberate the world, navigate through your life as one who is liberated. That's the only way we ever make any difference. Because what's not going to get your attention is me sitting here spouting my opinions and agendas, trying to convince you of the right way. The right way. What does make an impression is me just moving about the world according to my own truth and understanding, and people witnessing and going, how is it that the world is a fucking hot dumpster fire and Amar's life just keeps getting better and better? It's because I live according to my truth, period. And sometimes my truth takes me into that dumpster fire, but more often than not, it doesn't, because Spirit has said to me from the beginning, Amar, your job is not to put out the fire. Your job is to build the new thing so when the fire goes out, people have someplace to go. So the most powerful thing you can do is to live as the most fully expressed version of you that you can. Because truth recognizes truth. And I don't even have to talk to you. I don't even have to acknowledge you. I just feel your energy in the room of like, what the hell? This person is like an avatar, an embodiment of liberation. How do they do that? I want to know what it's like to live like that. I want to know what it takes to live like that. And then the journey begins. So I can't stress it enough that the most powerful thing that you can do is get right with yourself and then live as the expression of that. So let's make a little shift into our inner work. Seems like nobody has anything that they want to share, which is fine. But let's just take a couple minutes break. Okay, Elisa's saying, yeah. Oh, yes. Okay. So Lisa's saying, I'm out of practice, been away from myself in the inner work because I've been deeply buried in religion, duality. Yeah. Can I give you a good practical advice for beginning in inner healing? Yes, absolutely. And we'll do a little bit of this today. But really, what I do and what I did in the beginning is I just started with meditation and journaling, and I do this automatic writing practice. And I would just sit down, and if I had something specific, like let's say it was a relationship with money, and I would say, Dear self that has all the money beliefs, I'm sitting here in this is probably 2015, 2014, and I don't really know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just sharing all my fears, sharing all my doubts, sharing my confusion, what I was uncertain about. And I just wrote until it felt like it was all on the page. And then I took a moment and I stopped and I just started breathing and I said, okay, now I want to talk to the person, or I want to speak for the part of me that holds those money beliefs. And then I would just start writing for them. And I would set a timer on my phone because my mind, being very logical, likes the beginning, middle, and end. So I'd say, okay, for 15 minutes, I'm just going to be the secretary, take dictation for this part of me. And I would just write until the timer went off. And I just did that every day for several months, just picking apart. Okay, now I want to talk to the part of me that believes that, love is for suckers, or I want to talk to the part of me that believes that if I don't do this, I'm going to die, or whatever. And I just started picking the beliefs or the patterns that just felt weird or felt off or felt unnatural. And I just started talking to them because I just know and I believe with all of my heart that when something, whatever, is within your field, you have dominion over it. So you just go into that space and compassionately say, come here, everyone gather round. We're having a little tribal meeting. And all of those parts are me, an aspect of me. And so I just started talking to them. And I started exploring and playing with them. And I would do it in meditation sometimes. I would speak out loud to them sometimes. I've shared this a million times. My favorite trick, put in my earbuds in my phone and go for a walk around the neighborhood, having conversations with myself, my team, with these parts of me. And no one knows that I'm not talking on the phone. So that's how I did it. I just started by sitting and really looking at what doesn't feel true or real or healthy or happy, what feels like it's out of place. And I just began. So hopefully, Elisa, that gives you a place to just to begin to connect, to just be curious. Another way you can think of it, as the way that I perceive it is there's the physical self, the emotional self, the energetic self, the mental self. And because of my history in retail, I worked retail for years in my 20s and 30s and even my 40s. And I worked in department stores, and we would have a big department, a store meeting. So you'd have the in charge of the shoes department and the cosmetic department and the men's clothing department, and all the managers would be there. So I just started treating them like my department managers. And I would wake up in the morning and I would journal. Okay, my physical manager, the consciousness of my body. What do you need from me? And then I would just connect with my physical consciousness, and it would say, I need you to drink a lot of water and I need you to stretch. Okay, cool. Okay, emotional manager. You're in charge of my emotional well-being. What does my emotional self need? Oh my God, you need to process that thing that happened last week. You still need a good cry. Okay, cool. So I just played it like that, right? Okay, mental self, what's going on? Oh my God, I can't stop thinking about that thing. Can we please do a little bit of work today to process that? That was another way I did it, is basically anything that I just did it from the perspective of I'm the authority. I'm the one who's in charge of this life. And back then it was Andrew. I'm the one in charge of this experience called Andrew. So at some point, I have to be willing to step forward and claim my role as the manager, the leader. I just didn't, I had no other way of really understanding it. And just over time, I figured it out. Oh, I'm the one who's in charge of my inner space. And I just have to figure out what kind of experience I want and then teach all of my inner selves about that. And a lot of it was intuitive. I just figured it out. It just kind of came into my awareness. Some of it was stuff that came directly from my guides and was channeled. Some of it came from other people that I worked with or that were mentors, and they gave me these ideas or tools. And all of that is going to be a part of the Self Healers League or the Self Liberators League. So I hope that helps, Elisa. I know that was a lot of information, but whatever you do, just find a way to lovingly begin to question and really reveal yourself to yourself. Glad it helped. Okay, so we've got about a half an hour left. So let's just take like a 3-minute break. We need to get a beverage if you need to use the restroom. When we come back, we'll switch into the inner work. So if you want to find a spot where you can just relax, kick back, and be quiet and uninterrupted, then do that now. And then we'll come back in about 3 minutes and we will begin the inner work. Okay, well, we're all getting settled. A couple of links I'm going to share. Oh, sorry, Lisa, didn't mean to send that just to you. There's the link to, oh, Melissa, thank you for coming. Have a great week. There's the link to purchase my book on Amazon. And thank you to everybody that has already purchased. And I'm going to ask again, if you've purchased and haven't left a review on the Amazon site, that would be a great help to me, because that really does help boost me to the top. Because I checked this morning, I think I'm like in the top 800,000 books on Amazon. Hey, we're getting there. And then there's 2 more links for you. If you're feeling like you got some value out of this work and you'd like to offer a donation, there's my Stripe link and then also my PayPal link. But again, not required, just an option. Okay, so now we're going to shift into our energy work. For this part of the experience, really the only thing that matters is that you can hear me. So your camera doesn't have to be on if you don't want to. In fact, I will. Where is my. There we go. Okay. So go ahead and just start to settle in. Also making sure that any devices that you're not using are on mute or vibrate or airplane mode. So just settle in. Find your breath. Breathing in nice and deep as you begin to settle in. There we go. Just using that breath as a tool to slow everything down. You want to imagine that your inner space is like a body of water. And if we're in our head, or if we're distracted, or our focus is a little bit scattered, that water can feel really choppy or turbulent or stormy. So just use that breath to bring everything to a nice still point. And see if you can't persuade the water and the inner space just to go nice and quiet and still. There we go. Just breathing in, allowing yourself to come fully into the moment. And as you're breathing, pay attention to that breath. Where does that breath end? Are you able to pull it all the way down in the body? Is it short and shallow around the chest and the shoulders? Does it stop at your sternum? If so, relax those shoulders. Oh, there we go. Take a nice full inhale. You can even use that sighing sound on the exhale. Ah, there we go. Just to fully relax, sending the message to the mind and the nervous system that it's okay to deactivate. We just push pause on that mental chatter and just be here, feeling that breath move all the way down into the body. And as you're breathing, shift your awareness to your inner space. You can visualize moving into what I call the inner temple, that place within where you connect with yourself, your truth, all of your aspects, your guides, your helpers. It is that place of connection. There we go. Just settling into that place. Just breathe as you arrive. We're just going to play a little bit with the energy, calling upon the higher self, our most exalted and illuminated aspects, to participate with us today. You may find that your experience is more visual. You may find perhaps that you are hearing things. You may find that for you it's more of a physical, sensing, feeling thing. Whatever your way of receiving insight, guidance, or feedback is, just let it be. There's no right or wrong here. There's only the way that your system more readily responds. And just allow it to show you. If you find yourself uncertain about, I don't know, am I getting any feedback, any insight? Just let yourself be. Just trust that you're getting what you need. And that as your awareness of it is required, it will emerge and it will let you know. So we can let the mind off the hook. There's nothing to achieve, there's nothing to acquire, there's no right way, there's no success or failure. There's simply you and your relationship with yourself. Beautiful. So, in your inner landscape, whatever that inner space looks like for you, visualize yourself in the center. Now, just like the question that I posed at the beginning of our discussion, you may not know where the center is from that external place. Maybe you don't feel like you've fully explored this field enough to understand the center. That's fine. What we're talking about now is the center within you. There we go. I'm calling upon your higher self, the energies that are here to specifically support and work with you, to energetically nudge you to that center. If you are somehow not there yet, or if you haven't found a way to feel that connection, Just asking your higher self, excuse me, to illustrate for you in some way. What does it feel like when you're in that center, when you're in that place of connection? Just breathe into that knowing. Breathe and allow that experience to arrive. Breathe and drop out of the mind and into the body. It is not something that you will think your way to. It is something you will feel. It is something that you will allow. And if you're still not getting it, then simply place your hand over your heart and say, either out loud or quietly to yourself, I request that my higher self please support me in whatever way is appropriate to locating my center and receiving the experience of what it is to be there. And then just drop into your body and breathe. Now we're going to play with the left side of the body and the left side of the field. This is your left. That is what we traditionally perceive as the feminine side of the self or the feminine part of the body. It's our receiving side. It's where we allow. It's where we receive. So visualize this side of your body and of your field lighting up. The feminine is often represented by the color black to represent that void of creation, to represent that the darkness and the shadow that was before, the mystery of the feminine, the nonlinear aspects of that feminine energy, the chaos that is the precursor to creation, that primordial aspect of self. So feel your left side of your body and your field activating and visualizing it expanding and stretching. We're not asking for anything here other than just a sense of the feminine nature. As you're breathing, just shift your awareness to that left side of your body. Allow it to activate. Maybe you can observe it visually. Maybe you're observing it through feeling and just sensations. Just let that feminine self become active. Let it expand higher and lower and farther out to the left, farther forward and to the back. Allow yourself to see that swirling energy, to perceive that feminine self. Perhaps even saying to this side of yourself, I intend to know you better. I desire to become more familiar with you. I am curious about dancing, exploring, and playing with you. And now gently shift your awareness to the right side of the body, to the right side of your field. This is traditionally considered the masculine aspect of self, of our physical body. The right side of the body being where we send, where we assert, where we direct. It is our choosing, our acting, our doing self, whereas the feminine is the being and feeling and sensing self. And the right side of the self, the masculine self, is often represented by the color white, or the light that pierces the darkness, the point of light that expands and then grows as it moves through the field of the shadow or the void. The masculine side is where we do, where we act, where we choose. It is the part of us that when it is imbalanced, when it is acting outside of the feminine self, when it is acting as if it is the only aspect of self, that is the shadow of the masculine, violent, aggressive, exclusive. But when the masculine self is tied to and connected to the impetus and the impulse of the feminine self, then the masculine has a point and a purpose. The masculine without the feminine is action with no point. The feminine without the masculine is an idea, it's a feeling, but it never goes anywhere. It never becomes anything because nothing is ever done, it's only felt. So as we expand that masculine side, we see it growing higher and deeper and farther out. We feel the intensity of that light. We feel the power of conscious, deliberate choice. And we can see these two aspects of self not as separate halves, but as equally important parts of a greater whole. And now come to the center, the top of your head, your sternum, your heart, even the perineum, these central points in the physical body. Allow yourself to balance in that center point while the feminine on the left continues to grow and expand. The masculine on the right continues to grow and expand. They meet and overlap and blend in the middle, and then we have a field that is fully balanced. In equal measures, our feminine and masculine selves, which create the balance point for the center to open and the descension of the child can occur. That anchor point, that balance point, the I am, the eye of the storm, the middle path. And breathe into that middle path, that center point. And from this place of connection, we can see within our field, within that inner space, is our connection to all that is, all that we have been and all that we will be. And allow those edges, the far, far reaches of the feminine self, the far, far reaches of the masculine self. Allow them to go as far as they want to, as far as they can. And your sole purpose at this moment is simply to be in that center point, where you can observe all that is active within you, where you can observe all that you have been through the history of all of the incarnations that the soul has experienced, of which you are a part. Understanding that you did not come this far on multitudes of lifetimes and incarnations. You did not come this far only to stop and to say, I am this, but not that. The whole point of arriving here was to say, I am all that is. All that is, I am. And I wrap my arms around all of it and claim it as a part of my experience, as a valuable, valid part of my experience. Even the things that I may not fully understand yet had a point and a purpose to them. And just breathe. And over the days and weeks and months to come, if you find yourself in a place of polarity, if you find yourself suddenly having taken a very rigid mental perspective, an us versus them, good versus evil perspective, and if you find yourself there, come to your center. If you find yourself being judgmental, if you find yourself picking a side, find your center and ask, Spirit, what don't I know here? What energy or information would help me to see the divine perfection in this experience? What energy or information would help me to soften my judgment, to soften my rigidity, and to see through the eyes of compassion and understanding? If you want to really go for it, ask, show me a lifetime within my experience where I have been the very thing that I am currently judging. When you curse it, you claim it. When you love it, you set it free. And in this instance, you could say, when you curse it, you claim it. And when you are able to find a space of neutrality about it, you set it free. Because I think in the purest sense, love is unconditional and unconditional is neutral. Just gently come back to your breath. feeling yourself slowly coming back to the room, breathing in nice and deep. As you're gently coming back to the body, we offer deep bows of gratitude to all of the energies and information that came to play with us today. As you take another breath, fully present in this moment, back in the body, back in the room at this point in time. And you can give a stretch. Oh, whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back. And take your time coming back. There's no need to jump right back into it, just using that breath to find your place. So my hope is that, if nothing else, this just expanded the field of perception just enough to begin to consider, oh, there is another way. May not be the way I want, but there is another way. So as always, this replay will live on my YouTube channel, which is Amar Energy. If you're not signed up for my newsletter, then you can do so on my website, amar.energy. Also, because the Self-Liberators League will be starting in March, and I'm going to have a whole bunch of emails talking about that, well, a whole bunch, but I will be talking about that in my newsletter. And then again, these weekly gatherings every Sunday. While I have also been posting them on my social media, I will always do it through my newsletter. So if you're not a social media person, so you can find me on Instagram at Amar Energy too, but the newsletter's the best way to stay connected if you're not much of a social media person. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out today. This was really, really lovely. You're welcome, Lisa. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I love these Sunday gatherings. I really do enjoy the time that we get to spend with each other. You're welcome, Nina. You're welcome, Jillian. So again, thank you everybody for showing up today. The link's in the chat for my book on Amazon, Notes from the Higher Self. Also, if you want to make a donation through Stripe or PayPal, not required, appreciated though, those links are there. And one more time, I'll ask if you have purchased my book on Kindle or hard copy or paperback, that you leave a review because that really helps me. You're welcome, Brenda. I hope you all have a fabulous week. I'm going to have some breakfast and make my grocery list and then brave the Arctic tundra out there. It snowed like crazy all day yesterday, so it is like full winter fantasy out there. Which I love, especially since I just bought some super cute snow boots and I have an excuse to wear them. All right, everybody. 6:55 in Chicago in February, that is unheard of. Sunny here in Canada, who knew? I mean, here we go. The Earth is doing her thing, and we're just along for the ride. I love you all so much. Thank you, everybody. Have a fabulous, fabulous week. Hope to see you next Sunday. And in the meantime, you know where to find me if you need me. Love you, everybody. Chat soon. Bye.